Hi, welcome to another episode of Tokenverse, the first one for this year, a podcast brought to you by FMFW.io Exchange, where we discuss the latest ins and outs of our industry by interviewing seasoned leaders and bringing you meaningful and trustworthy conversations. Now, before we head into our episode, there is an important disclaimer that we need to share with you. As much as we love what we do in our industry, at the end of the day, crypto is risky and you can lose what you put in. We would like to mention that the content distributed through our podcast represents educational purposes only. It does not represent financial advice in any shape or form. Always do your research and stay safe out there. Now, before we get into our podcast, we would like to share our mobile app with you. Now it's easier than ever to stay in touch with your crypto. How easy? Pocket close easy. That's right. Our FMFW wallet allows you to stay connected with your crypto on the go, buy, stake, sell, and swap your crypto, and send crypto to your friends with zero transactions. You can download the app using the link in the description, and the app is available on both the App Store and the Google Play. And it's time to get into today's episode. It's a special episode. We are kicking off the year, and who else can join us to kick off the year than our own CEO, Danish Chaudhry. Danish, welcome to the show.
Bogdan, pleasure to be here, man.
A pleasure to host you. Now, I would like to discuss with you a lot of things that happened last year, and I'm excited to sit down with you today and recap what has been an eventful year, not only for us, but for the whole industry as a whole. And it would be great to start by introducing yourself to our listeners and to those in our community that may not know you yet.
Great. Well, my name is Danish Chaudhry. I am CEO, founder of FMFW.io, which stands for Freedom Money, Feed the World. We started this exchange back in 2018, 2019 as part of the Bitcoin.com family. So it used to be called Bitcoin.com Exchange. Since then, we've rebranded. Figured, it's good to be a standalone brand in the exchange landscape. And yeah, we've been going strong ever since, and we've been growing on a daily basis. And so, been through a lot last year, and excited to see what 2023 brings for us.
Absolutely, that makes two of us. And if you could also share, actually, I'm very curious to know how you have got into the crypto industry. So it would be interesting to see that side of the story about your experience and what has attracted you to enter our industry, and why not you could share some of the key lessons that you have learned along the way.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this goes back to 2009, 2010. My background's in traditional finance. So I used to be at a company called Ernst & Young before. And then after that, I used to be at a company called BlackRock, which is a large asset manager. Was there for a number of years. And during that time, you kind of start looking at what's new in the industry, what's coming around, what are some fringe technologies that people are using, and obviously, Bitcoin came up as an early means of transferring value, and so started digging in 2009, bought my first Bitcoin in 2009 2010. It was kind of like those days when Silk Road was still active, so I used it for playing around with Silk Road. Then we got Mount Gox and the whole thing, and it always seemed like a novel idea, before really delving deeper into it. And then I remember one day we were sitting on the trading floor, and obviously there's like a bunch of screens everywhere. And on Bloomberg, it shows up that Bitcoin hit $70. I'm like, what the hell just happened? How did Bitcoin just get mentioned on Bloomberg? And then that was shortly right before the rally to 1,000, and then all sorts of stuff happened. So been interested since then. And then when you kind of start delving into what the technology can allow you to do, you kind of go down this rabbit hole. Before there's Mastercoin and a few others, and did the ETH ICO and all that sort of stuff. And after I quit BlackRock, We went into, I became an entrepreneur and started a payments um, company, specifically doing remittances. And then we worked with Ripple and a bunch of others. So we were like early adopters. Um, and kind of really kind of delved into what the use cases of crypto and blockchain could be, and really got into it, got stuck in. This is like pre major ICO days sort of thing. So nobody done an ICO at the time. And yeah, been involved ever since then. Had a couple other businesses that we sold out of, and then thought I'd start an exchange.
That's amazing to hear your backstory and how way back you go with the industry itself. I'm curious because it seems like you've been surrounded by leaders in finance ever since you have started your journey in crypto. What was the conversation back then? What was the vibe around the early stage of what was about to become a new financial system?
Well, I think uh, I think people hadn't heard about crypto as such, and the few that didn't really think it would catch on. People thought it would just be another fad. People looking at it's kind of like saying the gold in World of Warcraft will become a world currency one day, right? And so people shrugged it off in that sense. And I think over the course of the last few years, I think it's become a lot more um, welcoming. It's gotten a lot more simpler for people to understand, and that's brought in new thinking and new ways of developing. And I think the evolution of the space went from just hacker culture and um, really really nerdy culture to art, media, and all that sort of stuff, which kind of brings in attention from institutions in a positive way, rather than looking at it as a threat. Even though Jamie Dimon's still on stage saying it's a Ponzi and everything, but it's still interesting to see people more like now when I sit at a dinner table, people who aren't in the industry ask me all about it. Whereas 5 years ago at the dinner table, nobody would know anything, and life would go on as if nothing existed, sort of thing. So it's evolved quite a bit.
There's definitely progress made in awareness, and I'm curious because being surrounded by so much skepticism back then, what has made you stick with it and just follow the progress of the industry itself?
I think the skepticism is what kind of fuels myself and a bunch of other founders anyway.
Mm.
It becomes a point to prove, basically. People who dedicate their lives to this industry or working in it, um, kind of make it their mission to make sure that it's not just vaporware, and there's actual use cases around it. So I think, yeah, the skepticism is what actually kind of helped propagate the industry forward from the founders, anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. Using, in a way, negativity to fuel the journey and the ambitions that you have, it's quite an interesting road that not many take, but I do admire that and I have to respect that. Now, moving on and diving deeper into the exchange side, we've been running strong for over 3 years. We are into our fourth year as an exchange, and it's a milestone worth celebrating. Now, looking back, how do you feel about our exchange's journey, and what are the milestones that made you feel really proud?
Um, yeah, I think journey's been very interesting. I think you really it's one of those products that you're direct to the consumer, and you don't realize how entrenched and how much you affect the person's life. um, uh, when when people are all up in my DMs and Telegram or wherever calling me a scammer, or like if they're not happy with something, if they put in a trade wrong, it's not our fault, but yet it's my fault for making that happen, sort of thing. No, it's been interesting. I think from a regulatory perspective, it's been fairly interesting. I think from a growth perspective, um, you know, having been through the ups and downs of last year, uh, still standing, I think I'm super proud. And I'm proud that we don't really, uh, we didn't partake in the activities that other exchanges and other institutional brokerages kind of did. And we always kind of keep a clean slate. And so I'm super proud of that. And I'm proud that we weathered through the storm. I think it's onwards and upwards from here for us.
Onwards and upwards for sure. Now, I'm curious, what has been the biggest challenge for you personally as a CEO of an exchange?
Um, yeah, I think I mean it's a challenge, but it's also like a positive challenge sort of thing. I mean, when you're running an exchange that runs 24/7, there's no downtime, right? I didn't have all this gray in my beard about 3 years ago, so and I had hair. I think it's a challenge, but it's also a positive thing that you always have to be um, active, alert, online, making sure your security is up to date. We get so many attacks, making sure securities is and everything is up to date, and keeping in line with what projects are doing, what the landscape is doing, amongst other things. I think it's very important. And yeah, those are challenges, but positive challenges
I
in
totally
that
relate
sense.
to that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
working as a marketing member already puts you in a position that you always have your marketing brain on, but
yeah,
then being involved with an exchange as well, it takes it to a whole different level. So there is no off switch,
exactly. Yeah, no, there isn't.
um, which is a good thing in my opinion as well. Now, one of our recent milestones, and I would like to say one of the most important ones, is the launch of our mobile app, the SMSW.io wallet. I think it would be great for our audience to learn more about it from you. How do you see the app helping our customers, and how do you see the app serving our mission to help both hardcore traders and beginners alike?
Um, so I'm proud of our app. It's a easy to use wallet, which users can use to you know swap, buy and sell and send back and forth. I think it's really important. It's an important first step in our suite of products that we're also releasing. And this is like the beginner entry um, product that I think people will really enjoy, current users will enjoy, especially if you're like just a newbie coming in. I mean newbie as like first time entrant. um, and so once we take the learnings from this, we've already got our full blown trading app coming out. So this is the first step in many more things to come.
Absolutely, it's the first step, and I can speak on behalf of our team that it's been a lot of work behind the scenes to make the mobile app available for our traders, and I do see how it's geared toward beginners, and we have seen feedback from our beginner traders, and they definitely found it very useful.
Great.
Now, when it comes to events, I am behind the scenes with you, and I know that you're always present on back-to-back industry events. I know that you are traveling the globe, whether it's a keynote or a panel with other industry experts. I think it would be great if you could share from your perspective what has been the general sentiment at events last year, and how do you expect this sentiment to change during this year?
Well, I mean, like last year started out all hunky dory, and it was all, we're still going, everything's still going to the moon. And then Three Arrows happened, and then the summer happened, and Celsius and Sam scammed everyone, and uh, there was a lot of happenings last year. So it started out at a high, and every conference was like, yeah, this is great. And then every panel and conference that I went to up until the end of last year was more like, is there a future for the industry, right? So it turns south very, very quickly. And so I think people have seen that the industry is resilient and it's here to stay, and that one person scamming $10 billion doesn't mean that we're gonna die. I think there's a lot more interest. I think it's a moment. It's like our Lehman moment where we'll come back stronger. And I think that will be the theme of 2023, where there are macroeconomic headwinds, in terms of some people say we might go into a recession globally or whatever will happen. Even if it does, it's fine. But I think the industry is still here to stay, and people who are going to build are going to continue building.
Absolutely, it's very interesting that the thoughts and the feelings have went in that extreme of doubting the future of the industry. I didn't think that it would be that extreme.
Yeah, I know. Interesting, eh?
What is one aspect that others have overlooked that resulted in a negative impact on their business, especially to centralized exchanges?
Um, what people have overlooked in
Yeah,
terms of uh, how of centralized businesses.
yeah,
Um, Look, I'm all a fan of decentralization, and your own funds, your own keys, your own funds. I think there does we aren't at a stage where all of this is easily accessible by the average person. That's why I think centralized services aren't evil, and they provide a use case, especially when people can't custody their own funds, they know what the keys are. So I think until the whole UI UX of uh, self custody kind of gets better, I think centralized services are still fairly useful. I think from an exchange perspective, we offer trades that are, we charge 2-3 bips a trade, at whatever tier you are, whereas on Uniswap you'd be charged 50 bips, 1% almost, sort of thing, on a trade, which when you do in size are quite frequent, you end up losing money. So yeah, I think there's still space for centralized players until efficiencies are gained in the decentralized space.
yeah. I totally agree with you. I do believe that a lot of, especially beginner traders, they choose to use centralized exchanges as a way to learn, as a way to test the waters, and as a way to expand their horizons when it comes to the industry itself.
Yep.
Now, you have mentioned before the negative events that happen, especially FTX, and I'm curious, and I think it's important to highlight here how our exchange is different and why our community and our traders can be rest assured that their funds are in safe hands.
Um, why our exchange is different? um, I guess I can go down a number of reasons, but we come from a technology that's been around since 2012, 2013, and our custody has never been hacked. So we're kind of battle tested. Our treasury operations means that we don't really rehypothecate user funds. In fact, they sit in central treasury, and never once have we kind of misappropriate funds, and we continue not to do so. And our uptime is great. We're in a space where I think there's a lot of fragmentation on the exchange side of things, and so it's the incremental differences are really small. I think it's more so, trusting the team, um, trusting the tech, and I think we kind of pride ourselves in really keeping the customer, be it a listing customer, a project, or be it like our retail customer, in the center of our operations and what we do. And we continue to build and continue to try and make the product better for whoever wants to work with us.
Now, my next question is, if you, as a leader in our industry, could you make one change that could impact the industry in a positive way? What would that change be in 2023?
Um, I think transparency is the number one thing. We were saying this from the very beginning when I used to be in traditional finance. We had to be very transparent, report on everything and anything that we do. There's no ifs, buts, and ands about anything. It's just you're very straightforward about what you're doing. And I think that those principles should be applied to our industry if you want to grow. Like, Celsius should have told people that you were loaning out your assets. I mean, everybody knows the bank does it, but the bank also has to report it to the authorities. That's what our industry needs. Exchanges need to tell people, like, hey, these are deposits. This is what assets on hand we have. And things like BlockFi and Voyager and that sort of thing. So I think I would make transparency mandatory, and let the user decide if they want to work with an industry or not. Like, it doesn't matter what the business model is. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. Everybody does lending and borrowing and that sort of thing. But I think you make it transparent so the user knows, and then they can make the decision about what they want to do. I think a lot of businesses within our industry operate on smoke and mirrors, and I think that's what brought about the downfall for our industry last year. But hopefully, you know, going forward, people have learned a lesson to that effect.
All right. So last but not least, Danish, what is your message to our loyal community of traders for this year, and what are some of the key trends that you predict taking the center of the stage?
I think, outside of giving any financial advice, because none of this is financial advice, I think we're as an industry heading into a bigger time of uncertainty in terms of um, what is going to be the fallout of FTX, how the regulator is going to respond to it. I think the time is a lot of projects got hurt. A lot of treasuries got wiped away. So I think this is going to be the year where builders are going to continue building. And I think uh, people just need to bear that in mind, that the industry is here to stay. Even though if we go into what people call a bear market, I think everything's cyclical. So when you think that there's no bottom, surely there will be. I think, yeah, it's uncertainty in terms of what governments and institutions are going to do, governments and regulators are going to do. But I think whatever comes out of it will still be positive for the growth of the industry for years to come, sort of thing.
Yeah, we definitely need to believe in the good things coming, and there's always the bright side. And I really like the fact that you mean to focus on that side, whether the industry throws at us curveballs, and whether some of the players in the industry have not managed to keep their customers happy and trustworthy. I think we need to focus on building, and I think we need to focus on our core values as an industry. All right, Danish, thank you so much for your time and for kicking off our 2023 podcast season with us. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting you.
Thanks, Bogdan. Yeah, I'm excited. I think this will be first of our episodes for the year. Going forward, hopefully, we'll get a few founders, partners on uh, our podcasts, and try and give our audience an insight into uh, who they're working with, what they're doing, which tokens we've listed, and what's the basis behind them, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to doing these more often.
Absolutely, me too. And you heard Danish, everyone. Make sure to hit the subscribe button because we have a lot more interesting guests and insightful conversations coming your way. We are glad that you are with us on our mission to free the money, free the world. Thanks a lot.